Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over a recent article by NBC News which talks about Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy drawing a primary challenger who's citing Trump's impeachment vote as a reason for running against Cassidy. This is going to be a very fascinating situation that potentially a bunch of senators could be facing in 2026 as Republicans look for more Republicans that are strongly aligned with the coming president instead of Republican senators who, in their words, are rhinos or voted not with the president all the time. So Republican John Flemming, who's Louisiana's treasurer and a former congressman, said in a statement that Senator Cassidy, quote, has failed the people of Louisiana. Senator Cassidy will face at least one primary challenger in 2026. The Louisiana treasurer John Flemming announced Wednesday that he will run for the seat held by two-term senator, citing Cassidy's vote to convict Donald Trump after his 2021 impeachment trial. Flemming, a former member of Congress, said in a statement that Cassidy, quote, has failed the people of Louisiana. A number of Republicans walked away from President Trump in the last year of his term, Flemming said. But those who turned their backs on him in the America First were not committed to his fight to make America great. Louisiana citizens did not give up on this fight. Cassidy's campaign spokesman, Joe Romallo, said in a statement, I thought he wanted to be state treasurer. John Flemming wants to get out of Louisiana. He publicly said he wanted a job in the Trump administration, and apparently they didn't want him. So after less than a year as state treasurer, he's looking for another job to return to Washington. Cassidy has not yet formally announced that he is running for re-election, but told the Shreveport Times last month that he is obviously working hard toward 2026. Cassidy was one of three Senate Republicans who voted to convict Trump in the aftermath of the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol, who are still serving in the chamber, along with Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and Maine's Susan Collins, who is also up for re-election in 2026. After the House voted to impeach Trump, the Senate acquitted him. While Collins represents the state Vice President Kamala Harris carried in last month's 2024 presidential election, Maine at large went Democrat by about 7 points or a little under that. Cassidy is up for re-election in a state, Louisiana, which I'm about to show the map in a little bit, that Trump won by 22 points. Flemming, who overlapped with Cassidy when both were in the House, touted his work as a senior advisor to Trump during his first administration. Quote, I cannot fully express the deep sense of pride I have having served President Trump in the West Wing of the White House as he was literally fighting for his political life against those who were attacking him and turning their backs on him. Flemming said, quote, but the opportunity to stand with him for the principles of America first is why I seek to serve the citizens of Louisiana in the United States Senate. Flemming was elected as state treasurer last year. Cassidy's primary will look different than his past races after state legislatures changed Louisiana's primary system earlier this year. The state will now have closed primaries for congressional elections with separate Republican and Democratic contests. Louisiana had previously held jungle primaries where candidates from all parties competed on the same primary ballot. And that is a very, very key and big point, and was actually part of the reason why Cassidy won the first time around. Where in 2014, when Cassidy did win, I don't know if the website can show you, but I want to see if it does have this. If my memory serves me correct, Cassidy won against Democratic incumbent Senator Mary Landrieu after it went to a runoff following the first round of voting in that jungle primary. The way it worked was all the candidates ran on the same ballot in the general election, and the people of Louisiana voted for them. And with like 8 or 10 candidates running, if none of the candidates broke over 50% of the vote, then it would go to a runoff election of the top two highest vote percentage candidates, which was Cassidy and Mary Landrieu. And if you're familiar with the 2014 midterm elections, which pretty much every single state voted a lot more Republican than they had in the past, and even some going forward, Cassidy was able to win the Senate race by about 11.9%, defeating the Democratic incumbent. Now it seems to be a different story. The 2026 U.S. Senate election in Louisiana will be held on November 3rd, and Republican Senator Bill Cassidy is up for re-election and is facing at least one primary challenger, John Flemming. So what are the chances of Flemming potentially defeating Bill Cassidy? Well, it's always tricky because even in a situation where it sounds like Bill Cassidy is not too well approved of by members of the MAGA side of the Republican Party, which seems to be a majority of the Republican Party following the 2024 elections, primarying out an incumbent is still no easy task, because the incumbent senator will likely have the support of the rest of the senators, or most of them, in the United States Senate, as well as his name will have been on the ballot. Cassidy ran in 2014 So he's been on the ballot. This will be his third time. So a lot of voters in Louisiana have gotten to know his name, which, for better or worse, in situations like this, the candidate being more well known is typically a positive thing. It is also worth noting Flemming may not be the only Republican challenger to Cassidy. Also, Clay Higgins, a representative from Louisiana's 3rd District, has been rumored as being politically or potentially interested in running for this race, as well as Blake Miguez, a state auditor, and Eric Skirmata, a member of the Louisiana Public Service Commission. So this is a very interesting situation. And I'm going to go through the path of, let's say Cassidy does get primaried. I think it's more likely to happen if it's only a one person running against Cassidy. If it's Flemming, or if someone else like Higgins does run and Flemming drops out and supports him, I think the best shot of Cassidy losing probably involves a 1v1 for the Republican primary. If there's 3, 4, or 5 candidates running that are high profiled, all running to primary out Cassidy, well, then the anti-Cassidy vote would be split amongst 3 or 4 people, whereas the pro-Cassidy vote would be solidified behind him. And assuming that he would not need to get over 50% in the primary, which I have not seen anything in the language here saying the Republican primary requires a majority vote to win the primary, then he would likely be able to win by the split vote. If it's a 1v1 and Cassidy really is that unpopular, then it becomes more unlikely, but that's all hypotheticals for a later day. But this is a very, very fascinating situation because when you look at the 2026 Senate map, right now I have Republicans getting about 51 Senate seats, Democrats getting about 45. And what's very interesting about this map is just as much as the Republicans are going after Democrats, there's the potential for some Republicans to be going after fellow Republicans. The state of Louisiana, we just mentioned, a primary challenger against Cassidy. The state of Texas, John Cornyn, there could be a potential challenger here if Ken Paxton runs against Cornyn. That would be 2. And who knows if there's any more. There were some rumors there may be one in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham. That could be potentially a primary one. Iowa with Joni Ernst, depending on how the Pete Hegseth committee situation unfolds. That's been getting a lot of media attention. Maybe there's a Republican primary challenger to her. There's a lot of potential situations going on here. So right there, that could be Iowa, Texas, Louisiana, South Carolina, 4 Senate races where the Republican incumbents could potentially be facing a primary challenge, likely from the more MAGA side of the party, which I'm not going to start overreacting or anything to yet, but it's a very fascinating situation where 2026, by all accounts, is supposed to be a more Democratic-friendly midterm. Based on history, usually the off party does better in the first midterm following the presidential election than the party that's in power. Let's just say, hypothetically, the Republicans are having to spend a lot of money in Texas, Louisiana, Iowa, and South Carolina to defend the Republican incumbents from primary challengers. Well, would that put them in a detrimental situation where they could win Iowa, they could win Texas, win Louisiana, win South Carolina, but then they have less money to spend in Michigan, in Maine, in North Carolina, and Georgia? Is that a potential situation? Yes. Is it 100% going to happen? No, I wouldn't say that. Is it realistic? I would say so. But what's very important for this election to remember is that Republicans are defending Maine, which Kamala Harris won. But Republicans are also trying to flip Georgia, which right now a Democrat, Jon Ossoff, represents it. So the Republicans, if they're going to win Georgia or Maine, they're going to have to flip these 2 states that are currently blue. Fighting amongst themselves in a primary where money may have to be spent significantly for it could be detrimental to their chances. But of course, we're going to have to wait and see how this goes. It's just a very fascinating situation where even though 2026, the elections are about, a year and 11 months away, based on how 2024 went, that may go by very quickly. But it's interesting these conversations and these candidates potentially running for these races are already laying the groundwork, and we're starting to see some very similar movements with regard to primary challengers in South Carolina, now in Louisiana, and now maybe even in Texas. So that was something interesting to watch. As for the Senate race in Louisiana itself, though, I'm still very confident it's going to be a safe Republican seat. Even though, again, I mentioned 2014, where Cassidy first ran, he won by 11.9. 2016, the other Republican Senator, John Kennedy, won by 21 points. In 2020, Cassidy won by 40 points. In 2022, Kennedy won by 43 points. Very, very confident, even with the new election systems in Louisiana. Louisiana will be a safe Republican state. But just a fascinating situation to keep an eye on with this article about Bill Cassidy, something I am at least monitoring a little bit. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button and make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.